Welcome back to Rooted in Faith. I'm Nikki, and this is Ethan.
I'm Ethan.
So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about Doctor Strange. And so this is a movie that we've watched a few times, and we finally caught on all the religious
Imagery
in it. Yeah.
Yep, there's a lot of symbolism. I think this movie is a perfect conversion story.
Definitely.
For any missionaries out there, anybody that has seen the process of God or the Spirit working on people, this is a perfect conversion story.
Yeah. I didn't realize how many references that happened throughout the movie until you started pointing them out.
Oh, they're all over the place. There's a ton.
Yeah, so we just rewatched it for this episode so that we could kind of get back on track with what we were seeing in the movie.
Yeah.
Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay.
So Doctor Strange as a conversion story. Where does it start, Nikki?
So he's a neurosurgeon, and
he's at the top of the top.
Yeah, he's highly sought after.
New York City, neurosurgeon. As far as doctors go, that's about the top of the food chain. Anybody performing brain surgery, there's a lot of ego.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of skill, there's a lot of schooling. But even within neurosurgeons, then there's a pecking order, and people try to be the best of the best. Doctor Strange has reached that. He is the best of the best. He has become all that he can be, and he's proud of it. He knows it. He knows how good he is, and there's just a ton of ego.
Yeah, so no humility. And then he has a car accident, and at that point, he feels like his life is pretty much ruined, and it's like, it's done.
Well, he's a victim of his own circumstance, but his whole life has crumbled now. The one thing that he felt gave his life meaning, which was performing surgery, he can't do that anymore. So now he considers himself lost, broken, worthless, and he's taking it out on everybody around him, including his friend Christine. She's always there for him. She's a very compassionate person, but he doesn't deserve it, and he doesn't see it. The only thing that gives his life meaning is being a doctor, having the ego, or a reason to have the ego, and performing surgery. It's a very selfish life that he lives.
Yeah, he's pretty condescending to people.
Oh,
I think
very.
There was that one point where he's asking the physical therapist about his bachelor's degree, and
he says all the physical therapy is pointless. The guy says, well, he has seen it help one person, and Doctor Strange is very condescending. He said,
answer me this bachelor's degree.
Never seen this help anybody. And he says, yeah, absolutely. And that leads Doctor Strange down the answer that he finds in the movie. But very rude, very condescending.
Yeah. Well, and I think even at that point, he's reaching out to basically anybody and everyone.
And he spends all of his money. He's talking to other doctors, trying to figure out any kind of procedure he can have done to fix himself. The world of medicine is failing him. And he has reached a point where he's essentially willing to sell his soul to be made whole.
Well, and even his own doctor, his circle of doctors, at one point he said he has his own reputation to consider.
Yep.
And now they're saying that to him because he's not fixable.
Yep. And they're going to turn his back.
They turn their back
on him.
Yep.
He's selling his soul.
Yep.
Trying to find anything that will help make him who he was, because who he was all that was important. And that leads him to Camartage.
So he's searching for Camartage. Mordo leads him there.
And this is a good example of his irreverence. And we see this this is a great character trait for those who are converting to a faith, and all of our experiences, Christianity and the LDS faith. So he spends all his time, all his money looking for the answer, traveling around the world, getting beat up, and he is being led to Camartage, and then on the doorstep he says, "Are you sure?"
like,
He asks
really?
Mordo, "Are you sure this is
This is it?
Comertage? What about that place over there?" It's a little more Comertage-y.
Yeah.
And Mordo has a fantastic line that sums up the whole sentiment of this. He says, "I too once stood where you stand, and I too was disrespectful."
Yeah,
So even in the face of being led to what he's looking for, Doctor Strange can't let go of his ego and can't let go of who he thinks he is. And he shows it through disrespect. So,
well, and just being dismissive and
very dismissive and disrespectful. Yep.
Yeah.
So he gets in, tells him, forget everything you know. Anytime somebody tells you that, it doesn't make any sense because you don't know what you don't know. But it was a sign to be humble. Doctor Strange, for him, it goes in one ear and out the other.
Being humble, like, I think that's a good way to approach scripture and study and being open to new things. And so I think that's what he's trying to get that across to him.
So he meets the Ancient One. She kind of surprises him. He is expecting certain answers that make sense to him. He's denying the fact that anything could exist that he doesn't already know about. He's looking for answers that he doesn't know, and he's also denying the fact that anything could exist that challenges his preconceived notions. She tells him, "You've been looking at the world through a keyhole."
Yeah.
And then when you're being told that it can be widened, you're rejecting it. Again, a great sentiment. I think that is a perfect parallel to anybody struggling with faith, struggling with conversion, and they want answers, they want truth, but they are struggling to be open to anything that challenges their preconceived notions of what they already think. They know of an answer they want, but they're resisting being told anything else.
I think that's a good point, because I think what we brought up was being humble, having a broken heart and contrite spirit, and being able to humble yourself to actually learn and gain that knowledge.
Right. Well, and so they kick him out. He has a very eye-opening experience. He has a little miracle there with the Ancient One.
Yeah.
But he's humble, but or broken, but he's not contrite. So
not yet.
They kick him out. They let him lay on the doorstep for a while and think about it. And he really hits rock bottom there.
Well, I think he finally realizes he doesn't know everything anymore, too. Like, he's got to approach it that he might not know the answers.
Yeah, definitely.
So then they let him in and show him to his room, and we both thought this was kind of a funny part, because he hands him the Wi-Fi password.
Yep, Shambhala.
And it really just means a place of spiritual awakening. And then he's like, "Is this my mantra?" And Mordo's like, "No, it's the Wi-Fi password." Then he goes back to the main room with the Ancient One, kind of explains what they do with magic and harnessing power from other dimensions.
Well, and that's when she waves her hands in the air and does that spell, makes those shapes in the air, the golden shapes. And it's interesting. This is probably my favorite line. He says, "Even if I knew how to do that, I would just be waving my hands in the air. How do I get from here to there?"
I think that's how we all kind of think when we're trying to do something and we don't know exactly what to do yet. We're like, how do we even get there?
Well, you have to bridge the gap, and that's what he's asking. How do I get from here to there? And she answers with, "Well, how did you get to reattach severed nerves and put a spine back together, bone by bone?" And he says, "Study and practice, years of it." And that's the answer. That's it. And I think that is one of the best lines that could be applied to how faith and scriptures, all of Christianity works. How do you get to heal people? How do you get to give, to perform ordinances, to bless people, to do actual work?
Well, and even if you know how to do it, if you're not practicing it, you're not going to be able to do well at it either. Like, it's a constant study. At General Conference, they were talking about this year about like 50% of your study time should be on scriptures and really understanding the gospel.
You have to have this, the study and practice to go along with your faith. For a lot of people out there that are going to argue, well, faith versus works, all of religion is both faith and works. Your faith gets you through in between your answers, and there's always a call to action with faith.
Definitely.
So if you are finding just a struggle in your faith, in your story, in your conversion, whatever it is, go back to the study and the practice.
Yep.
Faith isn't everything. Faith will lead you to doubt. Faith will give you feelings, but study and practice, that's where you see the whole gospel and everything come to life. But that is my favorite, probably my favorite line.
I like
There's
that part
a lot
too.
of good ones
Yeah.
in the movie, but that's my favorite line. How do I get from here to there?
Yeah.
Study and practice, years of it. Things take time, and you can get better. You have to learn to use your faith.
Definitely.
It's not just thinking and believing really hard. You have to actually practice it, put it to use,
Yeah.
and that leads to higher understanding. So moving on to the next part.
Yeah, so then we have the scene in the library with Wong. So Strange wants more knowledge. He sees the master's section and assumes the Ancient One's private collection is forbidden.
No knowledge is forbidden in Kamar-Taj, only certain practices. And that one,
That's cool.
that one for me echoes a lot of the LDS Church. You
Definitely.
have the canonical scriptures, but all of the Apocrypha, standard accepted belief is there is truth in many places, and you have to use discernment to understand it and determine whether or not it is valid and good or wrong and deceiving.
Yeah.
And we also believe many things are yet to be revealed. Some things have already been revealed, but we've missed it. Jesus, God, the Spirit, they're not in the habit of taking out space on the billboards for us to, everybody to be on the same page and know what's going on.
Yeah.
No, things are subtle. You have to
You have to
have
look
a
for 'em.
desire.
Yeah.
You have to have that desire. You have to have a passion for it.
Yes.
No knowledge is forbidden, only certain practices. And for me, what that echoes is the Garden of Eden.
Definitely. I was
Adam
just
and
thinking
Eve,
that.
partaking of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And this will be just a challenge to everybody out there. Did God forbid them from learning of good and evil, being near the tree? No, it was the practice. Only certain practices are forbidden. They were forbidden to partake of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree and the knowledge of good and evil were not forbidden, but the fruit was. The fruit is the practice. And I just found that there's so many subtle references to Christianity in this movie.
Just from that perspective, coming in from and converting to LDS, I really find that take on the ideology and using texts outside of the Bible and the Book of Mormon, like there's more out there to learn and read from, and I think it's refreshing and helpful just being able to discern from the good and the bad stuff.
Yep. Another part, Dr. Strange is shown the astral dimension. That was in his first encounter with the Ancient One, and then he later uses that to be able to study while his body sleeps. But that's an interesting point. If we were to apply that, the astral dimension, the LDS belief of your pre-mortal existence and post-existence, the spiritual realm that we interact with, but we cannot see with our mortal eyes, just seem to mirror that. That's where the angels and the demons are. It's in that spiritual realm. But I found that very, very fascinating.
Yeah.
Then we have the Mount Everest scene. That's where he's learning to cast a portal with the sling ring.
Yeah, and he's challenged with adversity.
Well, and
He gets stuck out there.
he's struggling. He's just doing some sparks in the air.
Yeah.
He's shown by the Ancient One, the guy that doesn't even have a hand, he's still able to do it. So what does she do? Does she coddle him? Does she say, "Oh, you'll get it eventually"? No. She takes him to through a portal to Mount Everest.
Leaves him there.
Closes the portal behind him.
Yeah.
Says, well, you got about 3 minutes before you die. Make it work. I think that's great. It's a condensed version of how we grow.
Yeah.
I heard it recently. There's no growth in the comfort zone,
Yep.
and there's no comfort in the growth zone. You
Yeah.
have to be challenged, and adversity builds character.
Definitely.
That right there, Doctor Strange was able to accomplish creating a portal. He seems to have a little bit of change of heart and confidence and acceptance in himself. Yeah, he turns a corner there in the movie just by being able to, in a way, he saves his own life, but he does it by humbling himself, and he builds a lot of character with that.
Yeah, I think after him being on Mount Everest and coming back, he really returns, and he's like really pushing hard to get through those books.
That's when he shaves, because he's got the scraggly beard. But I think after that, he shaves, and he gets a little bit more self-confidence, self-worth.
Well, and just taking care of yourself, and like, I think that's huge. Then at that point, he's asking Wong for books on astral projection, and then he's stealing books through the portals, I think.
Yep.
Those are pretty funny scene. He's beyond the lessons at this point, and he's kind of teaching himself.
The Ancient One, she is showing him the mirror dimension, says, hey, when you first came here, you rejected everything. Now you question everything, and you just prefer to teach yourself. Does she chastise him? Does she tell him does she hold him back? No, she gives him more tools so that he can continue to improve and study, which is fascinating. I think we should do that. I think in a lot of church settings in our culture, rather than that happening, I think we fall prey to the niceness culture. We stay in the safe zone, comfortable, but we don't have much growth.
Yeah.
And she is definitely pushing Doctor Strange to continue to be out of his comfort zone and to grow as much as he is desiring.
Yeah. I think that should be our own expectation for ourselves, because I think sometimes we expect that we're going to go to church and we're going to learn there all the deep and hard and interesting questions, but that's not necessarily where we're going to get it. It's our own pushing and passion that's going to lead us to those questions and answers.
Yep. Well, in this next part, this is where the movie really picks up. He's writing an email to Christine. Christine's his ex-girlfriend, who he was a big jerk to early in the movie. He's writing an email to her, and it says something like, I wish we had, or I'm writing to you one more time. And it's a really subtle. Camera just kind of centers on that email. And I think he notices the words more time or time. He remembers that book in the collection of the Ancient One that he was told was about the study of time. So that's the scene where he goes and takes that book. He wasn't able to read it before. He's able to read it now. He gets the Eye of Cagliostro. And
that's a cool name.
It's a very cool name. So he starts playing with it. He's testing it out on the Apple, forward in time, back in time, this and that. And then Mordo and Wong stop him. That's when he starts to, as I like to say it, see beyond the veil a little bit.
Well, and he's kind of like, what is going on here? Like, what are you guys actually doing?
Yeah, it's not just a peaceful convent of monks who are learning magic. So what does he learn? He learns that they are fighting to protect reality from evil forces. As they're doing that is right when, then they explain the different sanctums. You got London, Hong Kong, New York, and what happens next? Then they're attacked. There's an explosion, and he's thrown into the New York sanctum. Yeah,
this is something that we looked up. Sanctum Sanctorum.
That's where he's being trained.
Yeah.
Yep. Sanctum Sanctorum.
So Sanctum Sanctorum is Latin, and it means Holy of Holies, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, anybody with with any Old Testament knowledge, temple knowledge. Holy of Holies definitely means something. But yeah, Sanctum Sanctorum, that's where he's getting all of his training.
Yeah.
Which if you apply that to any of the beginning of the movie, imagine his learning, his growth, all of his knowledge he is getting in the temple.
Just really cool.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So that's when he's thrown into the New York Sanctum.
Okay.
He's when the London Sanctum, there's an explosion. He gets blasted backwards through the doors of the New York Sanctum, and he's just poking around. This is where he meets the bad guy. Caecilius is attacking the New York Sanctum. Now that it's funny, we just talked about the name of Sanctum Sanctorum. Caecilius's name has a lot of meaning as well.
Yeah, this was super interesting.
So
you found it.
Tell them what Caecilius means.
So Caecilius is a derivative of a snake-like reptile. I think it's called Caecilian.
The animal is the Caecilian.
Yeah, it's a limbless, long-bodied reptile.
Yep. In the movie, his name is spelled with a K. Mm-hmm. It makes the cuss sound, but it's a Celtic name, Celtic with a C, and a Caecilian is spelled with a C.
Yeah.
But it's like a snake. Mm-hmm. It's not exactly a snake, but it's like a snake. And it's commonly referred to as a snake, but it is also blind.
Yeah.
It has no eyes.
Caecilius in Latin does mean blind.
Oh, does it?
I think, what you were looking up. Yeah.
So he's a snake, which from the Adam and Eve story, biblical imagery, very significant that your main antagonist is named after a snake-like creature, but being short-sighted and blind is a lot of foreshadowing.
When we were watching this and looked up his name, we were like, no way. This is like not even possible.
Well, and that's not even the last name reference. We'll get to another one here that we only noticed after like the fourth or fifth time watching the movie.
Yeah.
So he's defending the sanctum. He's fighting the minions or the henchmen, and he meets his cape, so to speak. And he traps Caecilius in the whatever that contraption was, and Caecilius starts monologuing, which is fantastic. It's a tactic straight out of The Incredibles when he starts monologuing. But this is something really subtle and really interesting. As he's monologuing, Caecilius, and you have to watch the facial expressions on Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
He's listening to what Caecilius is saying, because Doctor Strange is still lost. He doesn't have a great grasp on who he is and what he's doing there. And Caecilius is being very negative about things. He's saying, we are just an insignificant speck floating through an indifferent universe. And that language right there mirrors, and I think part of it is identical to something he either said to the Ancient One or Christine earlier in the movie.
Early on, yeah.
I forget what it was, and we were too excited to record this before looking it up again. But I think it's when he's arguing with Christine, and he's mad, and he's saying we're just meaningless specks floating through an indifferent universe. That's what both of them have said. And he recognizes that when Caecilius says that is exactly what he had in his heart earlier on. Now, that doesn't mean it's true, because he has all this new knowledge and power and ability now. What he's realizing is how wrong he used to be and how far he has come. He's looking at what he could have been. Yep. Right now, I think they are perfect foils of each other. Another reason being is Caecilius's name means snake. Mm-hmm. Now, if they're foils of each other, what does Doctor Strange have to do with the snake?
That's interesting. Yeah, because he's a doctor. So he would have the staff and a snake, two snakes wrapped around him.
The historical symbol of medicine is a staff with two snakes coiled around it. Yeah. Paramedicine or paramedics is a staff with one snake coiled around it. So here's Doctor Strange. He's the top of the food chain in the medical industry as a doctor, represented by a staff with a snake
That's crazy.
Which, if anybody has biblical ears, and you're thinking the Nehushtan,
Moses, right?
Moses with the brass serpent. That's probably one of the oldest references, if not the oldest references, to healing and a staff with a snake.
That's crazy.
And here the bad guy is, his name means snake.
Yeah. And then
It's
he's
very
fighting a doctor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So he's monologuing. Doctor Strange has that epiphany. He's figuring out, and he uses discernment. He even tells Caecilius, but look at your face. Look what this is doing to you.
Yeah.
So he's tempted, but he uses discernment, and he understands whatever Caecilius is saying, and whatever it is that I recognize. This is obviously not the way. This is wrong.
Yeah, he's really learned something. Like he believes in something now, and he sees wrong and right.
Right. This is obviously not the way. Well, and Doctor Strange gets stabbed. Then he's fighting that other guy. The cape saves him, but then he opens up a portal, goes to the hospital, has Christine start saving his life there.
He apologizes to her. Yep.
You have that whole scene. It's fantastic. And we're just going to jump ahead a little bit towards the end of that. The bad guy is dead. Christine has saved his life. He's explaining to her where he's been, what he's been doing. She says, "Great, you've joined a cult."
He's like, "It's not
another
cult."
Church reference. Anybody that ever got serious in church, what did your friend say? It sounds like you're in a cult.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a Mormon. And he even jokes later. She's like, "Where are you going? You can't go anywhere." And he's like, "Hey, I'm late for a cult meeting."
Yeah.
So he goes back to the London Sanctum, the New York Sanctum, goes back through his portal. And this is a fantastic spot. He meets up with Mordo and the Ancient One, who were super excited to see him because they thought he might be
was dead. Yeah.
And this is, I'll let Nikki tell this one, because this is probably the most subtle reference, because you really have to know your scriptures to get this one. But once you see it, it's unmistakable.
Well, it's kind of crazy. I had just been learning about this, and we watched the movie.
They ask if they've seen any of the bad guys.
Yeah.
And this is what he says.
So one is dead, and then one is in the desert that he threw out that portal door.
At the end of the
hallway. That was a desert.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you guys know, there's... this is probably referring to the two goats from the Day of Atonement in the Bible. And it's found in Leviticus. So on Yom Kippur, the high priest took two goats. One was chosen by lot to be sacrificed as a sin offering. And then one is sacrificed, the dead henchman. So that one's the sacrifice. And the other is called the scapegoat. And so this is the one that they exile off into wilderness. They're carrying the community's sin out into the wilderness or desert. And so that's the henchman that's out in the desert. So they have one dead henchman, or the goat that's been sacrificed, and then the goat that's been exiled. Yeah. And so that was the henchman out in the desert. And he says
it that way. He says, one is dead and the other one I trapped in the desert. Which, that right there, if you're thinking of the Yom Kippur tradition, it's unmistakable. Somebody snuck that in.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. Across, we see that copied and mirrored in lots of different situations across the scriptures. In the Book of Mormon, we've got Nephi. He kills Laban, but kind of takes on his identity, and he and his family are exiled or escape to the desert.
Yeah.
So one is killed or sacrificed, and the other one is out to the desert. But then even with the story of Jesus, with Jesus and Barabbas is set free, and Jesus is sacrificed, is killed, is crucified, and it's just completely fascinating that tradition is just mirrored throughout the scriptures, but also in Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy when I saw it. I didn't
it
expect
went right
to
over
see
my
that.
head. I Then I never caught it. If you blink, you miss it.
Yeah.
The next part is part of that scene. Ancient One. This one's really funny, especially for Mormons or the LDS. The Ancient One is super proud of Doctor Strange. Says, "Hey, the New York Sanctum needs a new guardian. Congratulations, Master Strange."
It's a calling.
And yeah, she gives him a calling. And what does he do? He says no. He has a visceral reaction. It's like, no, you can't do this to me. What's interesting is he pushes back and challenges everything. He feels like he knows enough to challenge the Ancient One. Brings up the fact that she's channeling dark energy from or energy from the dark dimension. And Mordo doesn't know anything about this. He's been a very faithful servant. It's interesting. She tells Doctor Strange, measure your next words carefully. And he's assuming and challenges her. Why? Because you won't like them? And she's very benevolent. She says, no, you just won't. You may not know of what you speak.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the most kind rebuttals I've ever heard in a situation like that. And it's fantastic.
Well, and he just might not. I think what she's trying to say is he might just not have the full context of what's going on exactly. Well, and I don't think any of us do at points in our life. We don't have the full context.
Well, we get very comfortable in what we think we know, but there's always, especially for those of us with faith in the church, we have a prophet, we have apostles, we have church leaders, we have church servants who have been given authority, and it's not hard to be critical of things they say and things they do and what we're taught and told. It's very easy to be critical.
Yeah. And
I think what the Ancient One says is just fantastic advice, whether you're complaining about your bishop or priest or whatever, especially over religious things, just be careful of just be careful of your words, because you may not know of what you speak. Have some humility in
that
criticizing your leaders.
Yeah.
Very good scene. Doctor Strange doesn't want a calling. It's fantastic. Fast forward a little bit. They have the battle with Caecilius. The Ancient One saves them, which is quite epic.
Yeah.
But then she's mortally wounded. They take her to the hospital, and she is dying, and back to the spirit world or the astral dimension.
Can you talk about that doctor's name really quick?
Oh, really quick, yeah. So if we remember the beginning of the movie, there's a great scene where Doctor Strange saves a patient, and he completely embarrasses Dr. West. They call him Nick in the movie. And then we see this doctor when they're trying to save the Ancient One.
Yeah.
There's this short little scene where he hands a scalpel to Dr. West, and it was a sign of humility and repentance, because he was saying, "Hey, you perform the surgery," and he was being very humble. It was a very good scene. But I didn't know this. Do you know what Dr. West's first name is? It's not Nick. It's not Nicholas. It's Nicodemus.
What?
That is his name. If you look it up in the credits, or if you're on one of the apps like Amazon, just pause it, and it shows the character's name on the screen. Dr. Nicodemus West. Now, if you thought we were just reaching and stretching for all these Christian imagery ideas in the movie, who names a character Nicodemus? Really?
This is like, what?
It's pretty obvious that someone was just messing around and was like, I am gonna put some Easter eggs in here.
Let's put as many religious imagery things as we can.
Yeah. Nicodemus West.
That was wild.
It just blew our minds. It's so funny. Thank you, Stanley.
Yeah.
So back to the Ancient One. She's dying. She is Doctor Strange jumps over to the astral dimension, and he's talking to the Ancient One. And this is where everything turns the corner. his knowledge becomes complete. He has a change of heart and epiphany. His knowledge comes full circle here. And how does that happen? He's talking to the Ancient One, and they're talking about she's commenting on his fear of failure, and he says, that is what made me a great doctor. And she says, that is what kept you from greatness, the fear of failure. Because why was he fearing failure? Because of his selfishness. If he hadn't been afraid of failure and had given into it, just like when he was trying to make a portal with the sling ring, you can't beat a river into submission. You have to submit to it. If he had submitted to his fear of failure and embraced it, she says that is exactly what kept him from greatness. He could have been greater had he not been afraid. And it's funny, you see in the next few lines, she says, it kept him from learning the greatest secret of all. And she says, it's not about you. And right then, the camera shifts angles. It's a beautiful scene, very well done. There's like a before and after. Like everything after that is new and better.
I really like it.
Yeah, it's not about you. All of it. And for those of us in the faith, we can dive down a certain level of scripture study. We get to a certain amount of knowledge, and then we also get to a certain amount of questions. And if we ever ask, like, what's the point? When we get enough puzzle pieces put together, you realize it's not about us. Yeah. All the meaning comes from the service, the charity, all of those things that Jesus Christ taught and preached. It's not about us. If it was all about us, it really wouldn't have much meaning. And even if right. I guess, and I'm not gonna get into explaining this, but if you've ever wondered why bad things are allowed to happen to good people, well, it's because that's not the point of life. No, it's not about us. Yeah. So anyway, apply that.
That might be another good episode to do.
It could be. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but think about it, and let's jump to the next scene.
I think they're in the washroom right now.
After the Ancient One has died.
Yeah. So he's talking with Christine in the washroom. He doesn't want to leave. She's got to go. He appreciates her now. He realizes like a relationship actually has meaning. But she's got to leave. So he's kind of left with the cape. And the cape wipes away his tears, which is kind of makes it funny at the same time sad, but like a good sad, but funny. And so then he heads back to the Sanctum Sanctorum. He's talking with Mordo. Mordo's pretty, I think,
he's had a faith
upset.
crisis.
Yeah.
If it was the real world, I think I'd call him John DeLynn. He had a complete breakdown in faith crisis. He's denying everything he knew to be true. It was shattered, basically. Yeah, and maybe Mordo had some things that he was going completely on faith and not on practice. He was putting too many spiritual things on a shelf because he was not addressing them, and suddenly all of that came crashing down when he learned that the Ancient One was using energy from the dark dimension. He had no way of coping with that, understanding it, unpacking it, and it broke him.
He's really a faith crisis for him.
He's your typical person with a faith crisis. Yeah. So that's happening, but they don't have time to dwell on it. They have to go save Hong Kong. They go through the portal. Yep. And it's already happening.
Yeah. Well, and then at this point, Doctor Strange, I mean, they're trying to figure things out, but he ends up with a bargain with Dormammu to save everyone.
Yeah, uses the time stone or the eye of Cagliostro. So when he's talking to Dormammu, it's interesting. He just learned an hour before things aren't about him. Yeah. Don't be afraid of your failure. Yeah. Embrace it. And so how does he save people? Well, he creates a time loop to trick and trap Dormammu, but the only solution is he has to die. He dies over and over and over again, and it
possibly thousands of times.
I think so. I don't think Dormammu would have given up after like 5 or 6 times.
No.
In the movie, I think they show about 10 or 15 types of ways that he died. But I bet Dormammu, this person who lives outside of time, for a while there, I bet he would have tested Doctor Strange, and I think probably
Groundhog Day.
maybe 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And Doctor Strange could have quit.
Yeah.
But he continued and he continued, and that gives it a little bit more meaning. If he went like thousands of times, like there was he resigned himself to maybe that was his existence now. Can you imagine getting 998 times and just thinking, this is my life now.
This is what's going to be going on.
Yeah. So that's how he saves everybody. Now it's interesting. We're almost through here, but we're just going to contrast Dormammu and Satan, because I think there's
this is interesting. Yeah.
really, really expertly done character traits here. Dormammu lives outside of time. He doesn't want what breaks him? Being a prisoner.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. You could speculate, well, what if he just chose not to kill Doctor Strange and let Doctor Strange live? He could have kept on his conquest of Earth and just ignored Doctor Strange. That wasn't enough for him.
Yeah.
And why wasn't it enough? Because, and maybe there's the thought that, Doctor Strange could have just kept resetting the time loop. What breaks Dormammu is freedom.
He's stuck, basically, and
he wants his freedom more than anything, because at the beginning of the movie, he craves Earth most of all. That's what he wants more than anything. Does he get Earth? No. What he wants more than Earth, that Doctor Strange shows him, is his freedom. And that's fascinating, because if we look at the garden story, the fall of Satan or Lucifer, and even if we look in the Apocrypha, the Egyptian life of Adam and Eve, it is fascinating to see what some of the motivations and actions of Satan are. He wants Earth as his dominion.
He wants authority.
But he wants freedom.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. He wants the glory from those who have freedom. That's the motivation. He wants to be free, but he wants to force everybody else into servitude and slavery. He wants the glory of those who could be free while remaining free himself. As soon as he is placed in the position of what he is placing countless other worlds in, the chains of Dormammu, that breaks him of all desire to have Earth. He is willing to let it go to maintain his freedom. It's very contradictory in values, and that's why understanding Satan and your values in the church are so important. If you understand the motivations of Satan, it makes a lot more sense when you read the scriptures. But that's Dormammu. What's important to him? There's no golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto them. No, it's flipped on its head. He is going to do to others what he does not want done to him.
Yeah.
So that's Dormammu.
Well, and then we move into, basically he makes a bargain, and Caecilius and his henchmen get what they want, which is to be a part of the one.
Right.
So I think that's interesting, because that really ties into the plan of salvation, kind of.
Absolutely.
You get what you want in the end.
Yeah, everybody receives their just reward. The Lord meets you where you're at. It's not a guilt trip to be more righteous. Just like our children, we want them to do the best they can do and be all they can be, but they receive the reward of their desires, because that is as far as they go. What happens to Caecilius? He gets what he wants. He becomes one with the creator, or the destructor, Dormammu. In this case, it's not pleasant. He was blind. He could not see it. He was a Caecilian. But it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, so I think what the last thing that you had was the symbol in the New York Sanctum.
Oh.
I thought this was interesting because you saw something similar recently.
Well, the symbol on the window is 4 arches, but what it is, if you ever, and the reason I realized this, I saw it in one of our LDS temples. It was part of a mosaic, a pattern, but if you take 4 circles and you intersect them, that's essentially what the symbol of the New York Sanctum is. It's an offset, like it's not centered, but if you take 4 circles and intersect them evenly and then offset and cut out the outside of the circles, that cross pattern that you get looks an awful lot like the symbol of the New York Sanctum on the window. And our local temple here, that symbol's all over, which is just...
It's kind of cool to see
it's
that
coincidence,
and tie it together, but
just fascinating. I actually realized the connection of those that symbol when I was sitting in the temple. So very, very fascinating. But tell us what you think. There's all sorts of things in there. I don't think we caught it all, but once you start watching that movie, go watch Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Turn on your religious ears and let us know. Leave some comments. Let us know what we missed, or if maybe you got a better explanation for some of the things that we brought up. But Doctor Strange is
a great conversion story.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they had some Mormons helping write that. So let us know what you think. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.